There are people you meet in school who become your best friends. And then there are the ones who become your rivals. For me, that person was Liam Carter. We competed in everything: grades, sports, presentations, even who teachers praise the most. And every time our eyes met, it felt like we were gearing up for another silent battle. Everyone at school knew it. If Liam walked into a room, I walked out, and if I walked in, he would find a way to challenge me. But what nobody knew, not even I, was that all that tension had another layer to it. A hidden one, a dangerous one neither of us dared to touch. Until the night it finally broke. It happened after a late study session, when the hallways were empty and the winter air seeped through the windows. Liam stopped me, looked straight at me with a trembling breath, and said the words I had never imagined I would hear from his mouth. Words that flipped my entire world upside down. "I'm done pretending. I'm in love with you." And in that moment, everything, every rivalry, every argument, every silent stare, suddenly made sense. What happened next changed us forever. Stay with me, because this story isn't about enemies. It's about what happens when two boys stop fighting each other and start fighting everything that tries to keep them apart. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what unfolds next. The rivalry everyone noticed. If you had asked anyone at Ridgeview High who my biggest rival was, they wouldn't have hesitated. They'd say his name immediately, almost with a smirk, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Liam Carter. Even hearing his name used to tighten something inside my chest. Not anger, not exactly. More like a mix of tension, adrenaline, and something I didn't have a word for yet. But I pretended it was pure competition. I convinced myself it was. Our rivalry didn't start with anything dramatic. No fistfights, no betrayal, no rumors. It started freshman year, when our English teacher hung our essays side by side on the classroom wall. Mine had a blue star at the top. His had a red one, the symbol she used for best of the best. Everyone crowded around to read them, and when we made eye contact across the room, something sharp sparked between us. He raised an eyebrow at me, almost a challenge. I lifted my chin, and that was it. The beginning of 4 years of rivalry. By senior year, people whispered about us in the hallways. They act like they hate each other. No, trust me, they love competing. They live for it. Imagine if they were friends. Or imagine if they... Stop. Don't even go there. But the truth is, nobody really understood what was happening between us. Not even me. Not then. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late October, cold enough that you could see your breath when you stepped outside. The sky had that silver, winter is coming look, and the hallways felt colder than usual. I was heading to AP History, my backpack slung over one shoulder, my mind focused on presentation I had spent an entire week perfecting. I had barely slept the night before. I wanted it to be flawless. Because Liam was presenting too, I walked into the classroom right as he did. Of course, it was always like that, as if the universe enjoyed putting us in the same space at the exact same time. He pushed the door open with that calm confidence he always seemed to carry. His dark hair was slightly messy, in that intentional way that somehow always worked for him, and he wore a gray sweater that looked too good for a simple school day. He scanned the room, saw me, and his expression shifted, not hostile, but sharp, focused, like he was tuning into a frequency only we shared. "Ready to lose?" he said, not smiling, but with amusement in his eyes. "Not today," I replied, sliding into my seat. "My presentation's solid. Yours better be too, if you don't want to embarrass yourself." He walked past my desk slowly, leaning down just slightly, close enough that I felt the warmth of his breath on my shoulder. "Oh, it's more than solid," he said quietly. "You'll see." That tone, confident but soft, hit deeper than it should have. It always did. And I hated myself for noticing it. When class started, our teacher called Liam up first. He walked to the front of the room with the kind of poise that made people pay attention before he even said a word. I watched him, arms crossed, pretending to analyze his technique, but the truth was I couldn't look away from him. Not from the way he spoke, so clearly. Not from the way his eyes scanned the room. Not from the way he avoided looking directly at me until the very end. And when he did look at me, just for a second, it felt like the air shifted. His presentation ended with applause. Of course it did. It was brilliant, clean, confident, thoughtful. Then it was my turn. I walked up trying to steady my breathing. I could feel his eyes on me the entire time. I hated that it affected me, that my heart was beating faster not because of the class watching me, but because he was. But I delivered the best presentation I had ever given. Every sentence, every slide, every point landed exactly the way I had practiced. When I finished, the class applauded again. And when I returned my seat, Liam didn't smirk, didn't tease, didn't roll his eyes like he usually did. He just looked at me with this expression I couldn't read. Something softer, something almost surprised. After class, as the hallway filled with noise, I shoved my notebook into my bag and tried to leave before he could say anything. But of course, he caught up with me. "Hey," he said, grabbing my arm gently. "Don't walk away." I froze. People brushed past us, laughing, talking about lunch plans, completely unaware of the storm building inside me. "You did great," Liam said quietly. Like, really great. Compliments from Liam were rare, maybe non-existent until that moment. "Thanks," I said, trying to sound casual. "Yours was good too." He smiled, but not the competitive smile I was used to. This one was different, warm in a way I wasn't equipped to handle. "You always push me," he said, "more than anyone else." Before I could respond, our friend Noah yelled from down the hallway, pulling Liam's attention. Liam looked at me one last time, almost like he wanted to say something else, then stepped away. But the look he gave me stayed with me for the rest of the day, because for the first time since our rivalry began, I felt something shifting, something I didn't know how to name yet, something that scared me, something that thrilled me, something that made me wonder, what if this wasn't rivalry at all? What if it had never been? After that hallway moment with Liam, that strange, soft smile he gave me, something inside me wouldn't settle. It was like a thread had been pulled loose, and the entire fabric of our rivalry was beginning to unravel in ways I didn't understand. I spent the rest of the school day replaying it in my mind. His voice, his hand on my arm, the way he looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time, or maybe like he'd been seeing me clearly this whole time, and I was the one catching up. By the time the final bell rang, my head felt full, heavy, restless. I shoved my books into my backpack and tried to get out of the building before I accidentally made eye contact with him. The last thing I needed was another moment like that, when I wouldn't know how to interpret. But of course, fate had other plans. I walked outside into the cold air, the sky a deepening gray that promised an early sunset. I pulled my jacket tighter around my chest and headed toward the student parking lot. I had almost made it when I heard someone jogging behind me. "Hey, wait!" I didn't have to turn around to know it was him. I felt it. I stopped, taking a slow breath before turning. Liam was slightly out of breath, backpack slung over one shoulder, hair a little messier from running. There was color in his cheeks from the cold, giving him that annoyingly perfect look he always had without trying. "Why'd you rush out?" he asked, stepping closer. "I didn't rush. I lied. Just wanted to get home." He raised an eyebrow like he could see straight through me. He probably could. "I was going to ask if you wanted to study together tomorrow," he said, "for the AP midterm." That caught me off guard. We had never studied together, not once in 4 years of rivalry. "You want to study with me?" "Yeah," he said, shrugging casually but with this nervous energy underneath it. "We're the top 2 in the class. Makes sense, right?" I opened my mouth to respond, but he kept talking. "And before you say no, I'm not trying to steal your notes or get an advantage. It's just, I work better when I'm around someone who pushes me." There was again that word, someone who pushes me. Why did it feel like his voice dipped just slightly when he said it? Why did it feel loaded? I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sure, that's fine." His eyes brightened in a way I had never seen before, not from beating me in a competition, not from proving a point in class, not from outscoring me on a test. This time, his expression was gentle. Great, he said, his smile widening. Do you want to meet at the library? Or, he hesitated, or at my place? My heart lurched. Your place. I repeated. Yeah, my mom won't be home until late. We'll have space. Quiet. No distractions. No distractions. Right. Before I could respond, one of our classmates, Amanda, walked by. Ah, look at the rivals, she teased. Finally calling a truce? Liam didn't even look at her. His eyes stayed on me. Something like that, he said. So, library or my house? I swallowed. My house, I said before I could stop myself. My parents won't bother us. His smile grew softer, slower, like he was letting himself feel something he'd been holding back. Then your house it is. He gave me a small nod and walked backward a few steps before turning around, heading to his car. I stood there, frozen, watching him go, wondering why my chest felt so tight. Why did this feel like more than studying? Why did he look relieved when I said yes? Why did he ask me instead of literally anyone else? That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, the way he paused before speaking, the way he looked at me like he was choosing his words carefully, the way he didn't smile until I said yes. It didn't make sense. Not with our history. Not with the years of competition. Side comments, eye rolls, quiet tension. Unless it had never been what I thought it was. The next morning at school, the tension between us had changed again. Heavier now. But not in a hostile way. More like anticipation. I felt at the moment I walked into first period. Liam glanced up and our eyes met for a second. And there was something there neither of us talked about. During lunch, he passed by my table with his friends, but he slowed down just enough to say, "Still on for after school?" My heart kicked hard in my chest. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound normal. "Still on." He nodded once, just once, but his expression said more than his words. By the time school ended, I was wired with nerves. When he walked toward me outside the entrance, adjusting his backpack strap, the cold wind ruffling his hair, something in him looked almost shy. Not a word I ever imagined using to describe Liam. "You ready?" he asked. I nodded, and we started walking to my house, 2 blocks away. Silence hung between us at first, but it wasn't awkward. It felt intense, like both of us were thinking the same thing, but neither of us was brave enough to say it. When we reached my front porch, I unlocked the door, my hand trembling slightly. I hoped he didn't notice, but he did. "You okay?" he asked softly. I froze, because his voice, for the first time ever, wasn't competitive, wasn't tense, wasn't guarded. It was caring, too caring. "I'm fine," I said, stepping inside. "Just tired." But he didn't move. He stayed at the doorway, watching me with an expression I had never seen on his face, like he was trying to figure out how to say something that scared him. And then he closed the door behind him. And for the first time since our rivalry began, I felt like we weren't rivals at all. When Liam stepped fully into my house and shut the door behind him, it was like the air changed. The world outside went silent. The cold wind, the distant traffic, the noise of students walking home, all of it disappeared. It felt like we'd stepped into a separate space, somewhere only the two of us existed. For a moment, neither of us moved. "Your house is nice," he finally said, his voice low, almost as if he was afraid to speak too loudly. "Thanks," I said, setting my backpack down. "My parents won't be back until late, so it's quiet." His eyes flickered at that. A small, almost imperceptible reaction, but I saw it. He noticed the privacy. He felt it. "Good," he said softly. That single word lodged itself somewhere in my chest. We walked to the living room and set our textbooks on the coffee table. I sat on the couch, pretending to organize my notes, trying desperately to focus on anything but the boy sitting next to me, close enough that I could feel the heat of his shoulder. Liam leaned forward, elbows on his knees, flipping open his AP history book. But he wasn't reading. I could tell. His eyes weren't moving. They were staring at the same corner of the page for too long. "You okay?" I asked, He turned his head toward me, and for the first time in all our years of rivalry, he looked unsure. "I'm fine," he said. "Just thinking." "About what?" He hesitated. A long, heavy hesitation, the kind that felt like he was standing on the edge of something. "About you," he said finally. My breath caught, and before I could even process it, he added quickly, "I mean about us studying, about the midterm. That's all." But it wasn't convincing, not even close. We tried to focus on schoolwork, but it was impossible. Every time our hands brushed while reaching for a pen, every time he leaned closer to look at my notes, every time our knees touched accidentally, my heart thudded louder. And he felt it too. I knew he did. I could see it in the way he kept swallowing hard, the way his foot tapped lightly against the floor, the way he kept looking at me when he thought I wasn't noticing. At one point, he nudged my notebook with his finger. "Your handwriting got better," he said. I laughed. "No, you just got used to it." "No," he said, smiling slightly. I noticed things that made something warm spread through my chest. "What else do you notice?" I asked before I could stop myself. He looked up at me again, directly this time. And there it was, that look, like he wanted to say something real, something dangerous, something that had been buried under years of competition. He opened his mouth, but the sudden buzz of my phone cut through the moment. I jumped. He blinked, startled, as if he'd been pulled out of trance. I grabbed my phone off the cushion. It was a friend asking if I wanted to hang out later. "No," I typed quickly. "I'm busy." When I looked up, Liam was watching me with an expression I couldn't place. Something between curiosity and disappointment? "What?" I asked. He shook his head, looking down at the open book again. "You turned them down fast." I shrugged. "We're studying." "Right," he said softly. "Studying." Silence again. But this silence wasn't awkward. It was charged, alive. I leaned back against the couch, and Liam shifted slightly closer without seeming aware of it. Our thighs were touching now, barely, but enough that every nerve in my body reacted. "We're terrible at studying," I said. That made him laugh quietly, the kind of laugh that warmed the room. "Yeah," he said, "we always have been." He turned his head toward me, and we were suddenly closer than we'd ever been. It didn't feel like a rivalry anymore. It didn't feel like two people trying to outdo each other. It felt like something was pulling us in, slow, inevitable, magnetic. "Can I tell you something?" he said. My chest tightened. "Yeah, anything." He exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for months. "I never hated you," he said. My heartbeat skidded. "I know," I said, voice low. "I never hated you either." He nodded, eyes dropping briefly to my mouth before flicking back up. It always felt like, I don't know, he struggled for the right words. Like I had to compete with you, because if I didn't, I'd feel too much. My breath caught again. "Feel what?" I asked softly. He looked down, shaking his head. "Forget it." "No," I said, leaning a little closer. "Tell me." He swallowed hard, his eyes darting to mine. "You really want to know?" "Yes." He didn't speak for several seconds. The room felt still, too quiet, like the entire house was waiting for his answer. "Okay," he whispered. "I'll tell you." He lifted his hand slowly, so slowly, and placed it on my knee. A gentle touch, almost cautious. My skin burned under his palm. The rivalry, the tension, the years of silent competition, all condensed into that single moment, into that single touch. "I felt nervous around you," he said softly. "All the time." I didn't move. Couldn't. "Nervous?" I repeated. "Yeah," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "Because every time I tried to beat you, it wasn't about winning. Not really. It was because I couldn't figure out why you mattered so much to me. My heart felt like it was melting. And why did I matter?" I whispered. He looked at me, really looked, eyes steady, breathing uneven, hand still warm on my knee. And he opened his mouth to answer, right as the front doorknob clicked. Someone was coming in. We both froze. The moment shattered. and everything we weren't saying hung in the air like a trapped breath. The sound of the front doorknob turning hit me like a slap of cold water. Liam's hand flew off my knee as if the heat between us had burned him, and we scrambled apart just enough to look normal, or at least normal enough for two boys who were definitely not feeling normal. My mom's voice echoed faintly from the entryway. "Hello? Anybody home?" I forced myself to breathe. "She's early," I whispered. Liam swallowed hard, his cheeks flushed, his eyes darting between me and the hallway. He sat up straighter, flipping his textbook open like we had been deeply focused on studying and not seconds away from something neither of us could name without breaking it. My mom walked into the living room with her usual cheerful presence, carrying a grocery bag. "Oh, hi, sweetheart," she said. Then she noticed Liam. "Oh, Liam, right? From school?" Liam nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am. We're studying for the AP midterm." My mom smiled, eyes bright. Good to see boys focused on academics and not just whatever teenagers do these days. She walked into the kitchen, humming to herself, completely unaware of the emotional explosion she had just interrupted. I kept my eyes fixed on my notes, pretending to highlight something important even though the words were blurring on the page. Liam leaned slightly closer, voice barely above a whisper. "Your mom has incredible timing." "Terrible timing," I corrected. He gave a tiny smile, the kind you give someone when you're both thinking the same thing but can't say it out loud. "We can talk later." But the problem was, I didn't know if later was guaranteed. The moment we had been in, that electrically charged moment, right before everything shifted, was fragile. It felt like something that, if broken, couldn't be recreated exactly the same way. My mom came back into the room. "You boys want snacks?" I bought cookies. "Sure," I said automatically. Liam shook his head. "I'm okay, thank you." She disappeared again. Liam let out a slow breath. "We should probably go back to studying." "Right," I said, though neither of us even tried to pretend anymore. For the next hour, we barely focused. Our hands bumped accidentally on purpose every few minutes. Our eyes met more than they stayed on the textbook. Every time my mom walked past US, Liam stiffened like he was holding in every emotion he wasn't allowed to express. When she finally went upstairs to shower, Liam closed his notebook. "I should go soon," he said, but his voice was soft, almost reluctant. "Yeah," I said, try not to show how disappointed I was. He started putting his things away, and the silence between us wasn't awkward. It was loaded, heavy with everything we almost said, but didn't. Everything we almost did, but had to stop. He walked with me to the front door, not because he needed to, but because neither of us wanted to end the moment. When he reached for the doorknob, he paused. "I meant what I said earlier," he murmured. My heart thumped. "Which part?" He looked over his shoulder at me, eyes darker in the dim light of the hallway. "All of it." I swallowed, unable to respond. He hesitated again, then added, "I'll text you tonight." Then he stepped outside. Cold air rushed in behind him. He turned and gave me one last look, a look that said more than any words could, before walking down the path toward the street. I closed the door slowly. My knees felt weak. My chest felt too full. The house was quiet again, but not in the same way. It felt like the silence was holding something for me, something fragile, delicate, new. That night, I waited for his text. Every vibration of my phone made my heart jump. Every minute that passed without a message made me feel stupid for caring so much. But at 9:47 p.m., my screen lit up. "Liam, can we talk?" I stared at the message, pulse quickening. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. "Me? Yeah. What's up?" He responded fast. "Liam, not here. Can I come over?" My breath caught. "Me? Now? Liam? Yeah. I'm already walking. Already walking." He must have been halfway here when he texted. I moved to the front window, pushing aside the curtain, and there he was, a figure coming down the sidewalk under the orange glow of the streetlights. Hands in his pockets, head slightly down, paced fast like he was racing his own thoughts. I opened the door before he even reached the steps. He stopped in front of me, breathing hard from the cold night. "I needed to talk to you," he said, voice trembling slightly. "Okay," I said. "Come in." He stepped inside, and I shut the door behind him. This time, no one was home. This time, no interruptions. I turned to him, but before I could speak, he shook his head. "Wait," he said softly. "Let me say this first." He took one step toward me, then another, until he was close enough that I could feel his breath warming the air between us. "I didn't come here to study, or to compete, or pretend nothing happened earlier." My heartbeat echoed in my ears. "Then why did you come?" I whispered. He lifted his eyes to mine. "Because I don't want to run from this anymore." I swallowed hard. "From what?" He exhaled, like the truth had been building, pushing, demanding to be spoken. "From whatever this is between us," he whispered. "Because it's not rivalry. It never was." I couldn't speak. He stepped even closer, close enough that his chest brushed mine. "And I don't want to keep pretending that I don't care about you," he said softly. "Because I do. More than I should. More than I know how to say." And before I could answer, he reached for my hand. Slow, gentle, careful, like he was touching something he wasn't sure he deserved. And in that moment, everything changed. Liam's fingers wrapped around mine. So gently it almost hurt. Not because it was painful, but because it felt like everything I had been holding back for years suddenly had nowhere else to hide. His touch was warm, tentative, almost trembling, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to hold my hand, or if this was some imaginary line neither of us was supposed to cross. But I didn't pull away. I didn't even blink. I just stood there, breathing him in, letting the moment settle around us like a fragile snowfall. He lifted his eyes to mine, and the room seemed to shrink until there was nothing but the two of us. No rivalry, no noise, no expectations from anyone who had ever watched us compete. Just him and me, two boys who had spent years fighting something they didn't have the courage to name. "Say something," he whispered, barely audible. "I don't know what to say," I answered honestly. "I've been trying to figure you out since freshman year." He let out a nervous breath. "Trust me, I've been trying to figure myself out just as long." He stepped closer. So close our hands were now fully entwined, palms pressed, fingers interlocked like they belonged that way. The rhythm of his breathing matched mine, without either of us trying. "When you left earlier," he said quietly, "after your mom got home, I couldn't stop thinking about what almost happened." My heart jumped. What almost happened? I asked, even though I already knew. He swallowed hard. "I think you know." I did. But hearing him admit it felt like the ground shifting beneath me. "I didn't want to leave things hanging," he said. "I didn't want you to think I regretted any of it." "I didn't," I whispered, "but I didn't know what you were feeling." He closed his eyes for a second, as if gathering courage. When he opened them again, there was a softness there, a quiet vulnerability that I had never seen from him, not once in all our years of rivalry. "What I was feeling," he said slowly, "was this." He lifted our joined hands, brushing his thumb across the back of my hand. The touch sent a warm shiver up my arm. "I've been trying to hide this for so long." "Hide what?" I asked, my voice barely steady. He shook his head softly. "Everything. The way I look at you. The way I pretend our rivalry is just competition. The way I act annoyed when you beat me at something when really, I'm just trying not to stare at you too long." My breath caught. "You stare at me?" He gave a tiny laugh, shy, almost embarrassed. "All the time." That confession cracked something open inside me. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. I couldn't even think. The boy I had spent years fighting, avoiding, challenging, had been looking at me the same way I looked at him. "You should have told me," I whispered. "You should have told me," he shot back, his voice gentle but full of emotion. We stood there in the dim light of my living room, everything between us stretched thin and electric. I felt like if one more word slipped out, the entire truth would burst free, and maybe that was exactly what needed to happen. "Liam," I said softly, "what do you want from me right now?" He hesitated, not because he didn't know, but because saying out loud made it real. "I want you to tell me I'm not imagining this," he said. "I want you to say you feel something too." I didn't look away. I didn't hesitate. I do, I said. I always have. His breath shook, a single, quiet exhale that carried years of buried tension. What do we do now? He asked. I stepped closer. Our chests brushed. Our joined hands hung between us, pressed against his shirt. We stopped running. I said. Liam's eyes softened, and for the first time, he let himself smile without holding it back. But then his smile faltered, just slightly, as another emotion flickered through him. Something heavier. Something scared. What's wrong? I asked. He bit his lower lip, hesitating. I'm afraid. Of what? That this is only real when we're alone, he said. That the second we're in school again, you'll pull away, or pretend this didn't happen, or that I'm still just your rival. My chest tightened. I understood his fear, because I felt it too. No, I said firmly. I don't want to pretend. Not anymore. He nodded slowly, but the fear didn't fully fade. People talk. You know they do. We've been rivals for years. If they see us together like this, they won't stop talking. I took a step back, not to distance myself, but so I could see him fully. Let them talk, I said. I don't care. That was the truth. For the first time, I truly didn't care. Liam took a deep breath, as if my words were the first warm air he'd inhaled all day. Then he leaned his forehead against mine. Okay, he whispered. Okay. We stayed like that, our breaths mingling, our hands still holding tight. And for a moment, nothing else existed. Not the school, not the rumors, not the rivalry we built our whole identities around. Just him, just me, just the terrifying, beautiful truth of what was happening. And then he let go of my hand, not out of rejection, not out of fear. He stepped back only enough to look me directly in the eyes, expression shifting into something serious, almost too serious. Can I tell you one more thing? He asked quietly. Yes. He swallowed hard, voice shaking with the weight of what he was about to say. This isn't new for me, he whispered. I didn't start feeling this today, or yesterday, or this semester. I held my breath. I've been in love with you for a long time. The room spun. I opened my mouth, but before I could respond, a loud knock rattled the front door. We both froze, and the moment shattered again. The knock at the door hit like lightning, loud, sudden, completely out of rhythm with the fragile, trembling world Liam and I had just stepped into. We both jumped, turning toward the hallway as if caught doing something forbidden, even though all we'd done was speak the truth we've been afraid of for years. Are you expecting someone? Liam whispered. No, I said, my pulse hammering. No one comes this late. He looked toward the door, then back at me. Do you want me to hide? Hide. The word stung. I shook my head. No, I'm not hiding you. I walked toward the door, slowly, carefully, while Liam stayed behind me, tense, hands curled into fists like he was ready to protect something he wasn't sure he was allowed to claim yet. I opened the door. It was my neighbor, Mr. Clark, a friendly older guy who lived 2 houses down. He held a package under his arm. Sorry to bother you this late, he said. This was delivered to my house by mistake. My heart slammed against my ribs, not from fear of him, but from the pressure of the moment Liam and I had been in just seconds before. Mr. Clark handed me the package and smiled politely. Have a good night. You too, I said, closing the door quickly. When the latch clicked, I turned around. Liam stood in the middle of the living room, breathing hard, not from fear, but from everything that had been happening between us before the knock. His confession still hung in the air like a fragile spark. I walked toward him slowly, placing the package on a side table, without looking away from him. You said you've been in love with me for a long time, I said quietly. He nodded once, not ashamed, not embarrassed, but honest in a way that made my chest ache. I meant it, he said. Every word. I took a deep breath. How long? He swallowed. Since sophomore year. Maybe even before that. My knees felt weak. I sat down on the couch, and Liam followed, sitting close but not touching me, like he was leaving the space for me to decide if I wanted to bridge it. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. He laughed softly, a sad, self-aware laugh. Because I didn't know how. We were rivals. Everyone saw us that way. And I thought if I told you, you'd laugh, or push me away, or avoid me. I shook my head. I wouldn't have. Maybe not. He paused. But I was scared. And you were impossible to read. I smiled faintly. I was scared too, Liam. He finally reached for my hand again, slower than before, softer, like asking permission. I let him take it. Our fingers interlocked effortlessly, like they were meant to. I want to know something, he said. When did it start for you? I looked down at our hands. Freshman year. He blinked, stunned. Freshman year? You're lying. I'm not. His jaw tensed, emotion rising behind his eyes. Then why did we waste all that time? Because we were idiots, I said with a smile. Two idiots pretending not to feel anything. He squeezed my hand, not hard but firm, a grounding touch. Do you regret it? He asked. No, I said. I regret nothing that brought us right here. He inhaled sharply, his eyes softening in that way that made everything inside me melt. Then he leaned forward, not to kiss me yet, but close enough that our breaths mixed. I want to do this right, he whispered. Do what? I whispered back, even though I already knew. This, he said, lifting his forehead to mine. Us. The warmth of him, the quiet intensity in his voice, the way he wasn't rushing. It felt like something sacred, something neither of us wanted to break. I don't want this to be some secret, he said. I don't want to pretend we're rivals in public and something else in private. I don't want that either. But people will talk, he said. Let them. He exhaled, a breath of relief, like he'd been holding for years. Then, slowly, he leaned in. Our lips touched, soft, hesitant, gentle, like a question waiting to be answered. My hand slid up to the back of his neck instinctively, pulling him a little closer. He inhaled sharply, his fingers tightening in mine. It wasn't messy or rushed. It wasn't fireworks. It was something deeper, a release, a truth finally spoken in the only way it could be. He pulled back slightly, eyes half closed, breath trembling. I wanted to do that for so long, he whispered. Me too. We sat there, forehead to forehead, breathing in sync, the world suddenly quiet again, but this time beautifully quiet, a safe quiet. He brushed his thumb over mine. So, what happens now? We face it, I said. Together. Tug at her, he repeated softly, tasting the word like it was new. For the first time since we met, he smiled, not competitive, not guarded, not forced. A real smile. I want that, he said, more than anything. I leaned into him, and he wrapped his arms around me. Calm, warm, certain. No hesitation. No fear. Just two boys who had finally stopped fighting what was always there. We stayed like that for a long time. Not talking. Not planning. Just existing. Finally as ourselves. Finally without rivalry. Finally without pretending. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like his rival at all. I felt like something else. Something real. Something honest. Something that scared me and thrilled me at the same time. I felt like his. Sometimes the people we fight hardest are the ones we're afraid to love. Sometimes rivalry is just another language for longing. And sometimes the person you think you hate is actually the one who understands you best. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story.